All right, thank you. Welcome to the Tempo Think Tank. This is our March edition, 2026. And uh this started many years ago during COVID when our world got shut down and we were lonely. I invented this happy hour on Zoom for Tempo teammates to come and drink a glass of wine and woe is me, talk about all the shows that we just lost and the contracts that were no longer in our future. And what started as, hey, who's your favorite person you ever had on stage theme turned into, how are we going to get back to work? What technology are we using? What is that? You worked on the NFL draft? Okay. Well, come tell us what it was like on the NFL draft. You know, Kara had a job. And from that day forward, someone coined it the Temple Think Tank, and it went from happy hour to actually a meetup once a week that taught us how to handle producing events in a virtual world. And it was so fun to talk about this thing called Unity and what is vMix and what is a platform. And I always said, I hope someday we're so busy that I don't get to see your faces anymore. And that was a lie. I was really happy that we're all busy again, but I'm really happy to see our faces at least once a month on the Tempo Think Tank, which is now where we meet once a month to talk about how to be better freelancers and how to grow our businesses and what does our brand look like and do we have to have general liability insurance and how do we get it? What does it look like? And are we business entities? Which one should we be? Every month we meet up and talk about how to be better freelancers. And this month I've decided to bring in the expert in AI, whose name is Al, which is really funny because it looks like AI when you spell Al, and it gets very confusing these days. This is my husband, Al. He's also COO of Tempo, and he has built our company from our website to anything operational. I'm always asking him to help me. He's an entrepreneur. He's started and sold businesses. He's invests in startups right now. So he is very business minded and very technically inclined. And he is kind of losing his job a little bit around here because I'm learning how to use AI to tech support myself. And he was gone the other day and I used it and I was so proud of myself. And he told me today how proud he was of me. And the other day I asked you to do something because, oh, if you're wondering, we share an office. There he is.
Hello.
I asked him to help me with something and he was busy and I was like, I don't need you. I got Smart Bob. That's what I call ChatGPT, Smart Bob. So I went on Smart Bob and I did figure out how to do whatever tech support thing I needed to do. So we talk about ChatGPT and AI and some people freak out and some people are afraid to touch it and some people are touching it, but they don't even know how much we can really use it and how we can use it to help us in our personal life, which I do all the time, and our professional life. It has become my personal assistant and my tech support for a lot of stuff around here. So I decided it's time to open up the floodgates again, bring the friends in, bring the family, bring the Tempo teammates, and let Al tell us how best we can use it to grow our businesses and just to give us a sense of relief in our day to day. So usually we go around the horn and we do introductions of who we are and what we do. I'm going to skip that today because it is a pretty full house and it might take up too much time. I would love for Al to just start his conversation. It's a little presentation, but it's a more of a conversation as well. And then when you do speak, just go ahead and say, you know, hey, I'm Nika Bell. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I'm an event producer or whatever it is. It's just kind of fun to know your background. So we'll do that if you guys have questions. And feel free to put it in the chat who you are, where you're from. That's great. We can get to know each other via the chat. Without further ado, Tempo's COO, the man literally behind the curtain, who's built this business technically for me. Al, I'm going to mute myself. Take it away.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Pretty excited to do this. I, like Nancy, use AI all the time, multiple times per day to help me just live and get things done much faster. And it's pretty awesome that I don't have to be tech support all the time. So I'm not complaining about that. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I am a type of person who's learned over the years to show and not tell. So there's a little bit of tell, but I'm gonna do examples. I'm gonna show you guys how I use it. I'm gonna show you guys how to use it, and kind of go from there. This is very much open-ended. If you have questions, I don't mind interruptions. I don't mind you jumping in and saying, hey, what about this? What about that? So please feel free to do that if you want to. And like, I'm going to cover some of the basics. Some of you may be already into that. We're going to go into some advanced topics as well. Um, so yeah, let's just sort of jump into it. First up, like it can be very overwhelming. There are a bazillion tools out there. Some of them are very specific, some of them are generic, but we're going to keep it simple, right? We're going to focus on generating text, which is what most people know that it can do if they know anything. But we're going to talk about research as well, how you can do research projects. We're going to talk about how you can use it as an assistant for work or personal purposes. We're going to do a little image generation. But again, more importantly, really, really want this to be real examples and show you real stuff that we're going to do. So real quick though, there's a timeline of how this has evolved, and it has evolved incredibly quickly. Back in 2020, they OpenAI released GPT-2 or 3, and it could generate some text, and sometimes it was actually pretty coherent. And so early days figuring things out, it's generating this text, everybody's pretty excited about it in the tech world. And then they fed it the world's knowledge, and you could actually ask it questions instead of just telling it to tell you a story. And it got pretty good at doing that, and for the most part was accurate. It was wrong a number of times, but this is just 3 years ago, right? 2022. 2023, they got to the point where, a lot of the models originally, it only had information from 2 or 3 years and older, 2 or 3 years ago and older. So it was dated. Well, they added real-time capabilities to some of these technologies. Last year, they gave it the ability, for lack of a better term, to kind of reason, which really, really allowed these, what you used to do is you'd ask it a question, it would give you a big answer or a small answer or whatever. And a lot of times it'd be wrong or parts were wrong, and you'd have to ask it to try again and clarify. And you go back and forth until you got an answer that you could trust. Well, now what it actually does is it will start to process and think a little differently, for lack of a, it's not really thinking, but what it's doing is saying, okay, the user has asked me to do these things. I'm going to research this first one, gather a bunch of data, analyze it. And I'm going to do the second one. And then I'm going to go back and check, hey, was I complete? Did I do as much work as I could have? Did I answer all the questions? So that at the end of it, it's a lot more accurate. And so reasoning was a big, big release last year. And this year they released something now we're starting to see called deep research, where you can give it a project, and I'll show you a couple examples of this as well. You can give it something you're working on or something you want to dig into, and it will go away for 10, 20 minutes and come back with a large, detailed description of everything you need to know about that thing. Pretty amazing. I started using it. They released it last month, and I started using it, and I've probably used it 100 times in the past 30 days. So it's really, really powerful and pretty exciting. So who are the players here? There are a number of, I'm focusing on just kind of the big companies that we've all heard of before. First one's OpenAI. Yes, it does text-based stuff with ChatGPT. It can do image generation with DALL-E, and it can do it can do research with its tool called Deep Research. Anthropic is another pretty popular one, but focuses only on the text side of things. Microsoft has Copilot, and they can do image generation. Google has Gemini and released recently a deep research project. Midjourney focuses purely on image generation. Grok is from X, and they have a deep search functionality as well as image and text generation. And then there's Perplexity, which really is just kind of a search engine. That's their sort of focus, where you can just query and ask questions, and it will look up recent information. There's a lot here. We're only going to focus on these three. For the most part, text generation, ChatGPT is still at the top of the list as far as quality. Deep research is phenomenal. When I talk to other people who are using Google or Grok for deep research, and they've used OpenAI, they always point at OpenAI as being more thorough and better. Midjourney is the leader in image generation as well. So we're going to focus on those. Now, can you use the others? Absolutely. Are there use cases for the others? 100%. For example, if you're a Microsoft person, you're using Outlook and Excel and Word, and you can have an AI assistant built into those tools, go for it. It's fantastic. If you're using Google tools like, Gmail and Slides and all that, same thing. Like they have some tools built into these that are great and easy to use. feel free to jump in and use those. They do have their purpose. But again, we're going to focus. So what kind of things can you use it for? And I'm going to show examples of all of these. One, search engine. I don't use Google search anymore. I have the OpenAI ChatGPT app installed, and I literally hit option space on my keyboard, and I have a little chat window. I can search the web, I can do deep research, I can do whatever I want, and I can ask it a question, and it will respond right from here. And so I've eliminated the need to do search through Google at this point. I get my answers. I don't have to browse around websites and things like that. I think we've all expected this one or heard of this one. Creative assistant, help get the juices flowing, creating content. Yes, 100% it does that. I'm going to show you how to kind of do it so that the results don't feel like ChatGPT did it. I don't know if you can start to sense that when you write, you see what people have written. There are ways to make it better at knowing who you are, how you write content, how you do things, and more information about you so it does a better job at that. Research assistant, we've talked about that. Learn about something big, do research on a topic. Personal assistant for travel planning, finding summer camps for your kids, all kinds of different things that make life a lot easier. And then, as Nancy mentioned, technical support, right? You can ask it anything instead of Googling or waiting on a support call for 3 hours and then getting disconnected and having to call back in and start all over. A lot of times you can get the answers to your questions right out of the gate. And so, point here is start using it if you're not, and let's see, see where it can take you. Before I jump in, because pretty much next up is all about demos and showing you some stuff. So I've done all the telling. Now I want to do the showing. If you guys could put on your video, if your video's not on, I just want to do kind of a show of hands of how many of people are using, say, ChatGPT or something similar. Just show me your hands real quick. Okay. How many of you are using it every single day? All right. How many of you use image generation? All right, good. Um, how many of you have used something like a deep research or a project along those lines? Okay, you're going to see some cool stuff today. Alrighty, let's jump in. So, I'm gonna close this out here. I'm going to pop over here. So I've got a couple of things that I've already sort of prompted out that I want to show you guys. Some of these I think you know, but they might be new for some of you. And so this first one is just kind of search, right? I'm going to click this search button. This is ChatGPT, by the way, for any of you who don't know this. You can go to chatgpt.com. You can sign up. They have a free version that is limited capability. They have a $20 a month version, which has, more capabilities. And then they have a $200 a month version, which gives you everything unlimited and all that, and early access to the latest and greatest stuff. So this first one is, hey, maybe you're booking a flight, right? You've got a job, you've got a gig coming up. Show me the flights. I need to go to Maui. Put these options in a table that includes airline, flight, all this information, include links on where and how to book, and all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to go ahead and do that one. And while that's running, I'm going to show you how I use search more built into my operating system. So as I said, ChatGPT has an app that you can install, and I've done that. And when I hit Option Space, this little window pops up. I can say, you know what? Nancy gave me this idea. Maybe you're running a corporate show in some random place. I said, okay, what about Nebraska? And I had ChatGPT give me somewhere in Alaska, and it said Alliance. So this is why we're doing Alliance, Nebraska. So I'd like to share some facts about the area, right? In a crew letter. Maybe you got to write a letter to your crew, let them know what's going on. Can you give me 5 things that are cool to see in this area? No, this is just regular search. No, regular search. So the crew letter here came up with a bunch of things. Carhenge, which ironically, we've been there. It's hysterical. It's this place that is laid out exactly like Stonehenge, but it's a bunch of cars, a bunch of old cars that were stuck into the ground, painted, welded together. It's pretty funny. But it gave me, real quick, this is like replacing Google, trying to figure out, things in Alliance, Nebraska, a museum, frontier town, Fountain, Carnegie Arts. Like these are great things that you could share with your team and give them. And it's super easy to do this. It took me 2 seconds. Meanwhile, this one in the background, which I could also do with that same search interface, but I wanted to do it here, put together a table just like it asked. It took 48 seconds. Airlines, flight numbers, time, return flight, approximate costs, and links to book to various sites. So super easy to do, very clean, very simple. Again, if you guys have questions or whatever, don't hesitate to jump in. All right, so I'm going to jump into the next one that I want to do. This one, it's more about, oh, I'm in the wrong spot here. This one's about creating content. And as I mentioned, like anybody can go into a prompt and say, hey, I want to write a blog post about this topic and make it funny. That's fine, but it's going to sound like ChatGPT wrote it. OpenAI released this concept called projects, and you can create a new project. You give it a name. I've already created one, so I'm just going to show it to you. It's called Startup Topics. And what you can do with this, delete this old one here. What you can do with this is add some files, right? So I uploaded some old blog posts that I've written in the past, so it knows what I like to write about. It knows how I write. It's learning my voice, and the content that I like to write about. And I've given it some instructions, right? You are a content creator for Bsharah. The topics you write about are startups, et cetera, et cetera. Give it some examples, give it some things to think about. And I even gave it more content and links that I didn't download. And so what I can now do is come in and say, what a project is it's an organization of files, instructions, and a bunch of different chats that you can have with it. And when you create a new chat, it's going to have that corpus of information. So another thing, like, you guys probably post job descriptions, or maybe you apply to jobs. If you're applying to jobs, maybe you put in a bunch of files that describe the work you've done in the past, maybe your resume. You give it some instructions on, oh, when I apply to Tempo and they ask me, why am I great for this job? I need about, 50 words that really hit home on why I'm perfect for this job. And then you just come in and say, I'm applying to Tempo. Here's the gig. Here's the job description. Give me something, right? And so this is an example of that. So first, I've told it about me and knows stuff. I'm asking it, hey, give me, 2 to 3 things to talk about. And in a few seconds here, it's going to go through and come up with some options, right? Hidden cost of fundraising. And it gives you some information. The accelerator myth, is a program right for your startup or a waste of time? All this stuff is great, right? And these are great topics for me that I could write about. And I have some knowledge on number 2. So I'm going to say, let's write a blog about number 2. Now, if I were to just do this, it would spit out some content in a format. And if I didn't like a part of it, I'd have to say, oh, can you change this? And then it would rewrite a whole new thing. And it'd be this long, crazy thread of trying to dial it in and get it right. What I'm going to do instead is add this to a canvas. I picked the wrong model here, but let's see what it does. It'll get the point across. When I do that and I click go, it's going to do something different. It's going to give us a side-by-side ability to collaborate with this piece of content that it's creating. So it's coming up here. Now, what it's doing is again, I picked the wrong model, so this content's probably not going to be spectacular, but that's fine. It's also slow. So it's going to create this content.
Did you say,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
are you using the free version or was this one of those subscriptions you spoke of?
This is the paid $20 version of ChatGPT that has this capability.
Thank
So I'm going to take a step back here. I'm going to go back. I'm going to do this because it's going to be a little quicker if I pick another model. So they're different models, right? 4.0 is one of the older models, great for basic questions. Yes, everybody gets 4.0. I think most people get 0.1. 0.3 doesn't work in this type of thing, but I want to use 0.1 here. And so I'm going to start over. Give me 2 to 3 topics to And so it'll be this will run much quicker once we get it. Um, okay, mentorship, turning early customers, sustainable growth. Okay, let's write a blog about one. But again, I'm going to do it as a canvas, and I'm going to click go. And so when it pops up, which it'll do here in a second, you're going to have that side-by-side pane. And the cool thing is it's going to allow you to communicate on the left side and have the content on the right side. So no longer are you working in one big long thread, right? So it's created this content here. It's great. Maybe I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, it's kind of long. Maybe I want to shorten it up a little bit. So I'm going to copy this out of here. And so over here on the left side is the actual conversation. And I can say, you know what? Make it about 75% of the length. It is, write it a little bit more casually. And so what it's going to do now is go through and you'll see it update on the right side in real time, which is kind of a nice feature, right? You see it just sort of updating, it's rewriting it, and you'll notice it is shorter when it gets done. The other cool thing is I can type over here. Ways to get founders involved. And now ChatGPT knows what the new content is. You can go through and rewrite a whole section if you want. So this is that collaboration piece that's really fun. And maybe you can say rewrite header number 1 to be more funny. You can even do things like this, right? You can give it like very specific things to do, and it will go through. And now you're collaborating. Now it's leveraging who you are and what you're about and all the content that you've written in the past or how you write things. So, and then here it is. Why should you care? Hint, it's kind of a big deal. Okay, so it rewrote that title. This is an example of how a project and how Canvas can really elevate your ability to create content that's more fine-tuned, if that makes sense. I thought I heard somebody at some point chiming in with a question.
It was your wife.
All right. Yeah.
I just wanted to point out, I didn't understand Canvas at first, but if you haven't used ChatGPT, what I ended up doing was like, can you make it funnier? And then it would I wasn't in Canvas, and it would just redo the whole thing and give me another, and then it'd give me another when I made edits. And I had like this long string of the same thing repeated, but changed over and over. And now with Canvas, it just fixes the one story on the right-hand side. So does that make sense to y'all? Anybody have any questions about that? That was life-changing to me. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And at some point, Al, I'd love for you to tell us about the different IO01. I have no idea what you're talking about when you're talking about those numbers up there in the top left of what you're using.
Okay. Yeah, we'll save that to the end, if that's okay. Any other questions on the project that has a bunch of files and information on it, on the canvas here, which is a nice way to sort of collaborate with the AI? All right. So next, I want to jump in and show you guys deep research. So going back to this project, though, you can see here is the topic, right? Or sorry, here is the chat that we just created, right? I can go back into it. I can, open this up and get back into the canvas, or I can just ask questions here, or I can start an entirely new chat, a whole new thing. Maybe I've got a new job that I want to apply to. Boom, put it in here, tell it to write some things up. So next, we're going to do O3 Mini High, which is one of their better models. And I'm going to ask it to create a bio about me. And this is a deep research project. So I said, hey, my name's Al. I want you to write 200-word professional bio for me. Here's my LinkedIn. Here's another link that has some stuff about me. Please use the web to find more information, so that it writes this bio. So when you click go, when you do deep research, it's probably going to ask some follow-on questions, right? Because it wants to make sure that it does a good job. It's going to be spending a lot of time on this. So it's going to ask some questions. So tone, right? It's asking me, let's make it conversational. I'll do bullets so it knows which ones I'm talking about. Key aspects. Leadership, entrepreneur, investments, tech expertise, a little bit of everything. Achievements, nothing specific. I'm going to skip that one. Third person or first person perspective. Let's do third person. Click go. And now what it's going to do is it's going to take whatever time it needs to go do research. I've had some of these take 15 minutes where it's just out there searching the web, digging around, learning what it can, making sure that it's doing that reasoning thing where it's thinking and making sure it's answering the right questions and answering everything that was asked of it. While this is running, I'm going to show you one that I ran yesterday, which is super crazy, huge, massive. You see all the scrolling I just did there. This is an example of planning a massive trip. All right. So big summer RV trip, map out all the stops, campgrounds for us, best routes to take. Here are the dates we start, willing to be gone 3 to 5 weeks. Here's who's coming. We love national parks. We like quirky, fun places to stop. We love the boondock. We love campgrounds, information on the RV. Oh, by the way, we're towing a Jeep, so we want to go four-wheeling and stuff like that. Telling it kind of restrictions about, I kind of don't really want to drive more than 8 hours at a time. Here are the places we want to stop and for how long. Some of the dates that are required, like this one, we need to be there by this date. We want to drive through Idaho, but we don't know where to go. So help us out there. Some friends in Seattle at a specific date. We want to go to Oregon as well. We don't really know to go. We kind of want to go see Bend, but here's what kind of we want to see. We want to see some wooded areas. So then I ask it, give us an itinerary, locations, dates, driving time, camping locations, type, cost, all this information, activities we should do, recommend some stuff, 4x4 trails if we want to get out in the middle of nowhere. It asked me some clarifying questions, which I answered. And then it put together this unbelievably thorough response. And I'm going to scroll for a little bit. I want you to see how small this little scroll bar is over here. So it starts off summarized, Encinitas to Ogden, Utah, 3 days. Camping in Ogden, here are 3 options that we have. Activities to do, here's 5 things you can do there. 3 4x4 trails. Next stop, Grand Tetons, right? Stuff to do. I could go on and on. I think you guys get the point, but it's doing this for every single location. Okay, now we're in Yellowstone for a few days. Here's all the camping options that we have inside and outside of the camp. Sites to see, places to go for, like, on and on and on. And we're like a quarter through this thing. I'm going to scroll a little quicker here because it's crazy big. Oops. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And it's literally done an entire job of laying out what we could and should do. And then it gives you a summary at the end. Here's all the places, the stops, everything you're going to do. Pretty amazing. Any questions on this that you guys want to talk about? When I did my first one of these, I can't even remember what it was. I think it was for a company that I was investigating and looking at. And it gave me this entire history of the company, everything that it could dig up. So I had a nice understanding of who this company was and what they were about.
Is there a way of downloading it and printing it?
Yeah, 100%. So if we come back over here, you can share it for one, so you could share with other people. Create the link. There should be, yeah, here, you can copy it right there. It'll read it to you if you want to, which is kind of nice. This might take a couple of days to get through, but yeah, you can copy it, paste it into another document or whatever you want to do and kind of go from there. It's still writing the bio. One thing you get to do when it's doing this deep research is you can see what it's doing over here. It will tell you, oh, I decided to clarify Al's unique approach, right? It's analyzing stuff with the programming language. But it went to a website, it went to some other website, learned some stuff about me. Here's another one. And so you get to see all the work that it's doing as it's kind of going through this process of learning along the way.
You know what? We could have a fundraiser. If you guys want to pay us, because he has that deep search, we can start doing profiles for you. Because you imagine, $20, we'll find your profile, we'll dig deep. That's amazing. I haven't seen this yet. Nice job.
Okay, so let's do a quick troubleshooting one.
Me and that.
Yeah, that was a great one where Nancy the other day, she's like, I got to connect this system and this system. I want to send data from here to here. I don't know how to do it. And she set up I don't know if you guys have heard of Zapier, but it's a kind of technology that allows you to connect systems together. But you got to be a little skilled and figure it out, and laid out all the steps for her. It didn't work. She said, hey, it didn't work. Send a screenshot up there. Try again. It said, oh, my bad. Try this. And so she had this full conversation with it to solve a problem. And it's pretty amazing to be able to do that.
And it was very compassionate. Oh, this must be frustrating. Thanks for the screenshot. I think we can fix this. Like, it was like my best friend. It was the weirdest conversation, but it worked. It got me through. I'm like, I got to start from step 2. And he's like, well, let me break it down even further. It was just a trip. It was like somebody really talking to me.
So this is one that I did a long time ago. We have Jeep Wrangler. It's 2022. I was hoping that it could connect to CarPlay wirelessly instead of without a cable, and turns out it can't. But it gave me a bunch of things to test so that I can go through, and instead of trying to track down manuals and different things and figure out how to determine whether that works on my vehicle, I just asked this and it gave me the answer. Bio, man, it's still cranking on that bio. Okay, so let's do a couple of images real quick with Midjourney. Midjourney is incredibly powerful. I'm going to show you a couple and then show you some examples of what other people have done. But maybe you need some kind of a background. You're creating a resume of sorts or a personal bio. You want to create something, right? It's minimalist design, blue and orange theme around the border mostly. Center area should be pretty clean, high resolution art, 9:16 background. Let it kind of go off and do its thing here. And within a minute or two, it will give you 4 options that you can use. Give it a second here. And, you click in and you've got some pretty interesting options here that you could use as a background for a bio. Maybe you've got a slide that you're creating and you want an image for half of it, right? So hyper realistic head and shoulder shot of a girl with red hair, mild freckles, monotone orange hue, 8:9 ratio, right? So it kind of fits on half of a slide. And I don't know if you've used Midjourney to create like hyper realistic kind of images and stuff, but I expect what you're going to see here is very difficult to discern from an actual real person in a real image. So while that's running, go ahead, Nance. What was that? So everybody.
Can you set up brand colors like you do in Canva?
I
wonder.
Permanently?
Like a project, so it knows your brand?
Yeah, I think you would have to do it in the prompt here. I don't think it has a concept of, that kind of project where you can tell it stuff about you. I don't know. It's possible though. But you can see here, right? These are like, you zoom in on some of these and like, if I can zoom, like really detail and vivid imagery here. Oops. So maybe that's, half of the, half of the slide that you want to talk about. Somebody's got their hand up, Katie.
It's interesting what Nancy just said. I feel like the Chat GPT on my phone remembers stuff about me and previous conversations that we've had. I like to talk to it a lot when I'm feeling really downtrodden about the world, and it helps me work through those emotions, and it brings up stuff from past conversations. So potentially, if you talk to it a lot and you tell it what your brand is, and it doesn't have to research it every single time, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's certain things that it commits to memory, so that it can recall them. And I don't know the specifics of how or when or it does that. But Nancy's noticed that as well. Like our oven is currently broken, and she was asking for a recipe, and it actually remembered. It said, "Oh yeah, since your oven is broken, you should do, here's some air fryer recipes, right, instead." And your use case, Katie, is super interesting. I've heard of people. There's a lot of super left wing, right wing, extreme stuff going on, and people are looking for a balance, sort of, hey, what's going on in the world? So they'll do that. People are
Yeah.
doing what you're doing. We know somebody who is, new to managing employees, and they're talking about some of the experiences they're having with people, and it's kind of helping them. Oh, this is this type of personality. Maybe you should approach them in a different way and manage them differently, and things like that. So it can be really the use cases are wide and varying. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that use case. Somebody else had a hand up, Jen?
Hi, thanks. I heard that there is some kind of nefarious backdoor software phishing stuff that they don't really have. I'm not in IT, so I don't know the words, but like a really strong way to protect your identity and keep your information safe, and that they can backdoor on your computer and get a hold of every. It sounded like the way they talk about Twitter. I'm not Twitter, TikTok. Do you know anything about
Um,
like cybersecurity with Chat GPT?
yeah, I mean, there's always going to be concerns around that, and more now as people are sharing more and more information. You as a person have to be comfortable with a company, right? Like, there was, geez, I'm blanking on the name right now, but there was a bunch of buzz around some AI thing that was released that was done really cheaply and it's going to change the world. Well, it turned out it was a Chinese company, and they like they won't talk about certain things, and you have no idea what China is doing. Back to your TikTok issue, right? Like, it's a China company and we have no idea what they're doing with our data. And there's a lot of data that people are sharing out there. And so, I don't use technologies that aren't US based companies, that have a good reputation, that are well established. ChatGPT got a lot of grief early on when they were starting that they weren't doing enough. I believe they're doing more now, but I can't be sure of that, right? I have to kind of trust that to some degree. So yeah, it's always a concern. Um, One of the things that they've done is they've allowed you to, when you're creating a new, let's see, I think it's here. Uh, Interesting. There's the ability to make it a temporary chat somewhere. Maybe it's with certain models. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Where you can, I know I can do it if I pull up my thing here. I can make it a temporary chat. And what that means is it's private. Like, it goes, it asks the question, it gets an answer, it doesn't store the data, it deletes it, and you're done. It doesn't use it to learn from or anything like that. So there are some privacy things that you can do to sort of start to lock it down a little bit. While we're here, all right, here's the bio, 200 words. Entrepreneur, San Diego. I work at Interlock Capital. That's correct. Led startups. Yeah. This is pretty good. Um, Techstars, double E by degree. Yeah, it did a pretty good job of this, right? And it's because it knew a bunch about me, and I gave it some things to do, and it went out and it looks like 9 minutes, right? To do research. It looked up 12 different sources of information about me, um, and figured out how to write a nice bio. So there you go. Those were all the examples that I wanted to show. Um, there were some follow-on questions that came up. Let's look at these real quick. There were some that were love to hear other perspectives where the line is, when to disclose. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for this. Like, when do you say, oh, I used AI to do this? I'm a fan of disclosing sources anyway, so you can tell ChatGPT, cite your sources, and then you can leverage those sources for your material. We talked about automation and how we use it, to as a tool for a personal assistant. Hopefully, we had some good options there. The best valued ones, like I'm a big fan of ChatGPT for most things, Midjourney for imagery. There were a couple of bigger answers, and I will share this deck so you guys can click through to the answers. I saved them. Like, what are trends and potentials for AI being used in production, like short show calling, board op, LX? I can't answer that, but I had ChatGPT do a deep research thing on it, and it came up with some stuff that's interesting. I think it dove into the film industry as well, because there's some pretty interesting stuff going on there. Um, Applications that specifically work, for maybe create a run of shows. I had it do some research on that, so I'll share those as well, and you guys can kind of peruse that. Some interesting stuff out there. Yeah, that's it for me. What do you guys have any follow-on questions? Anything you want to see or learn about or hear about, or questions you haven't, or things you have heard of but don't know much about?
When do we
Go
think
ahead,
it'll
Jen.
learn how to count?
Oh, sorry, Barry, go ahead.
When do we think it'll learn how to count?
How to count? How do you mean?
So I've used it a couple times. I said, how many times is this word used in a bunch of words, right? And it doesn't know how to count because that's not what it just doesn't know how to count yet.
I'm going to test something here. I should share my screen again so you guys can see what I'm doing here. My understanding, so that's a good point. I have heard that's a challenge. My understanding is that the newer models do a much better job of this. So I'm going to put it on a bigger model. So I asked it how many times is Al used in the bio and how many times is AI used in the bio. And so let's see what it does here. But while that's running, that's an interesting question. I believe that the newer models are better. I can't say for sure, but I do recall that that has come up before in the past where, yeah, it's terrible at doing basic math and counting. Al is used 4 times and AI is used 0 times. This Al. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks pretty good. And I don't see AI in there. Yeah, I guess it counted that right. So I don't know if that means it's fixed or not, but it did a pretty good job there. Jen, you had a question.
Hi, thanks. So I was cooking a soup that I asked ChatGPT to create for me just now. That's why I had my camera off. And I thought you said that there was a $200 a month version of it. And I wonder if you've ever like compared the differences between the free one, the $20 one, and the $200 one.
Yeah, so this past month I did pony up for the $200 one because I wanted to use deep research. I said, I'm going to use it for a month, see if I like it. The good news is within that 1 month, they allowed deep research in the $20 plan. Now you can only use it so many times. So that is kind of how the limitations are working, where if you want to be first to get access to something, you're going to pay for it. And if you want to use it in an unlimited way, you're going to pay for it. But they're pretty quick at releasing stuff to the lower, $20 tier, just in usually like a limited fashion. You can only use it so many times.
But do you like it? What's the difference?
So Nancy asked, I liked it. What's the difference? There's not much difference. Like, so Nancy, you wanted to talk about these different models here, right? They do a pretty good job of kind of explaining them. Like 4.0 is great for most basic kind of things you want to ask. It's great for search, just trying to get an answer to something. It's fast. 4.5 is kind of new. I wouldn't worry too much about that one. 0.1 is good, where that's the first one that started reasoning. And 0.3 is doing much more advanced reasoning, and it's faster. And then this one, if you write code, is really good. It's good at like logic-based things. And then there's an 0.1 Pro version, right, which is really good at reasoning as well. It just kind of depends on what you're doing, and sometimes some models don't have certain versions of this. Like I think 0.1 Pro does not show up in the $20 version. I think you have to have the paid one to get that. This O3 Mini High, you probably have O3 Mini in the $20 one, but maybe not this one here. So sometimes there's a level of ability that an AI has that is not going to be available in the $20 one. That might be in the very expensive one. But 90% of the time, you're probably not going to need the crazy one, right? Like I'm paying for it this month because I wanted to experiment and I have access to it and I use this one all the time. But the reality is, like, I'm not using it for coding and it probably needs it for like some kind of scientific crazy research project. That's where it's best suited for. I could probably get away with O3 Mini and get, fantastic responses just the same.
Hey. Today, I don't have the ChatGPT app on my computer. I have a PC, but I went online and got the extension on Chrome, and it's replacing my Google search, which has been pretty cool. So I went to search for something today and it says, "You're on ChatGPT. Is that okay?" And I was like, heck yeah. Because it's not going to send me a bunch of websites to go look at. It's going to send me the answers to my questions, which is really nice. So that's an easy shortcut too, just to always have it ready to go on your computer.
Kel, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I do. I'm most recently coming from a highly regulated corporate environment where none of this would be allowed, without going through a lot of hoops. So in the freelance world, I'm just curious how you would advise freelancers. For example, someone gets a gig at an event, let's say it's a healthcare event or a finance sector event, and they want to use these tools to help create the event in different ways or shapes. Would you advise getting permission from every company attending the event? I can imagine there might be entities out there who don't want their information in certain ways around events. I'm just guessing coming from the environment that I'm just coming from.
Yeah. So I guess my recommendation would be whatever you use it for, don't put anything that identifies a company or PII is kind of what they refer to as personally identifiable information for a human. Similarly for a company, right? I would just be generic in your requests, and make sure that you're not, throwing a deck up there that has a bunch of really critical information in it. I think if you're doing that, then, I'm not a regulation or regulatory kind of person, so don't take my advice as like anything that is legal or legit. But I think if you're asking generically, then it's probably okay to some degree. But yeah,
Thank you.
permission's always a good thing to go for.
I have the ChatGPT app, and there's two settings. One's called personalization, which you could turn off the memory if you choose to, the memory feature, which Al talked about, but also data controls, where you can turn off and improve the model for everyone. It's on by default, so anything you're putting in is training the model, but if you're also trying to like get sensitive information onto there, I'd always turn it off. But I've used ChatGPT a lot for conferences, especially with trying to write bios around sessions, because sometimes clients are like, we can't think of anything. So I'm like, all right, let me throw something into ChatGPT and have you react to that. At least we have something to get the ground running.
That's a great idea, Yuval. Can you guys tell us how you've been using it in events? Like just share with each other how you've been using it. I've helped it like write agendas for like just as on the side, like a mom's group I'm in that I created. I created ideas and themes for meetups and icebreakers and really casual stuff like that. But how else have you all used it for work? Anyone? Go ahead, Edward.
I'll go. We've used it for scripts. We've used it for slide content. We've used it for pretty much any words that all of us do on a regular basis. I mean, the reality is like you've all said, like no personally identifiable, and Al said it, like don't put the brand of the company that we're working for in there. Like just don't put it in. Don't put in super sensitive like science data or like we're not trying to ask the system to like do research, but to condense a paragraph or to less words, like make less now, please. Or like your prompt has kind of been, at least for me, it's been the key, is like in asking the system to do the thing you want it to do. Everything from reducing content to writing, like Nancy said, writing agendas, like, and then I've kind of played around trying to get it to do a run a show, trying to get it to do like more complex things, and still it's horrible. It hasn't come out right, but it's not that far away. Like we'll be able to throw all of it in and make a spreadsheet that has all of these pieces of information, and then you just take it back and obviously you have to edit it. I don't just send it directly to the client, but it's a powerful tool. Like it's powerful.
Yeah, I just dug into the settings on the app, and I want to show you guys real quick. So you go down to your name, click settings. I'm gonna try and stay scrolled here because there's, oh, it didn't share yet. Sorry. There we go. So you go down to your name, you click settings, this pops up. There's some personalization you can do in memory. I'm not going to click into this because it has things that it remembered about me in here. I don't want to put that on video, but you can actually go in here, read the things that it's remembered, and you can delete some. So you can manage that memory, which is pretty interesting. There was a question about that earlier, maybe from Katie, I can't remember. And then, yeah, there's the data controls that were mentioned. So, you know, I have this turned off as well, which means that it can't learn from the things that I'm sharing with it. It's not allowed to do that. And you can actually customize it too, which is pretty interesting. You know, what do you do? What traits, you know, do you want it to be? You know, do you want it to be poetic or skeptical or whatever? Anything else? And then there's the advanced does. I haven't been down here in a while. Yeah, and then you can turn some of the features on and off, it looks like. So yeah, pretty interesting customization that you can do there.
Here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, hey. So I live in Missouri and we are a sunshine state. And so I just worked an event where AI, an AI product that was made by a company was like the subject of this event. And what they were doing, it was an event for HVAC contractors. But what they were doing is they built an agent, and this agent was recording the calls of the HVAC company salespeople and also recording the meetings that the HVAC people were having in customers' homes without the knowledge of the customers because it's a sunshine state, and so you don't have to disclose that. And then the AI was like spitting out, here's how you did on your meeting in this person's house. So that's a little creepy, but it definitely made me think like, oh, I could use this to tell me how I did on a client call or tell me how I did on a client email or something.
100%. There's something to be said for self-improvement. And if, you know, there's a bazillion different tools that will, you know, record, transcribe, summarize, you know, meetings and things like that. And you know, if you can go in there and query those and say, okay, how'd I do? You know, and maybe set up a project where it's like, here are the things I'm supposed to talk about, right? Here are the goals that I have on a per call basis. And then you stick in the transcript for a call or whatever and say, how did I do? What did I miss? Right? Like I like that idea. I think there's something interesting that you could do there.
Barb, were you gonna say something?
I mean, it's a little off topic kind of, but I do these workshops called pickleball prehab. And I have like 5 different versions of what I've done in the past. And I dropped all of them to Chat GPT and said, hey, can you spit out a 1-hour clinic, including this, that, and the other, starting from the ankles up to the shoulders, including the neck, include longevity and supplementation. And it took all of kind of my past work and added onto it, and it just made out this perfect 1-hour. And I mean, I have to be smart to speak to it, But I mean, as a content creator, it made my life. It took content that I knew how to speak to, and it just kind of, I'm so excited about it. Like, it made it so smart. I'm very happy
Amazing.
about it. Thanks, Al.
We're coming up at the end of the meeting. Oh, but Tom has a question. Get it in, Tom.
Yes, hi, thanks. Going back to security for just a moment. Um, Back to what Kel was saying regarding the the sensitivity of corporate information and such like that, and not to use the name and all. Where do our searches reside? Are they searchable from outside of so how does someone find out how we created something if we did, do something inside the corporate world or something like that?
You mean, so when a model is being trained, so let me make sure I understand your question first. You're asking like, hey, if I accidentally put in some corporate information and share it, how do we know that there was a breach of information? Is that kind of what
Correct. Yes, essentially that, yeah.
So I don't know the answer to that. I think at some point, if that information is used to train a model and somebody asks a question about a company and that information shows up that was at one point private, then somebody slipped up and shared something that maybe it shouldn't have. That said, I don't think they use all the information that is dumped into this thing to train a model, because that would be very noisy, and they're looking for correct information, not just all the information.
But we should view our searches as essentially being public.
I don't know if I call it public, because it's not going to point to a document that has everything that you've typed, but it may infer knowledge based on what you have typed
Okay.
at some point.
But tread lightly, in other words.
Yeah.
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 All right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Tim, what you got?
Realizing it's the end of the session and I got on late, so just tell me if you've already addressed it. I have a relative who works for the State Department in Pennsylvania. They have software systems that are probably from the 1500s. Is there can this thing get in there to that? Basically, does a certain amount of software revision or updates have to be available to this system to seek the data, or can an older system keep it from being found? Did I ask that properly?
If you're using ChatGPT on a browser in any system, it's going to work the same as anybody else. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're on doesn't matter if you're on your phone, doesn't matter if you're on a Mac or a PC or, an old Apple II.
Gotcha.
Which didn't actually have a browser, but yeah.
I'll have to warn my brother about that then. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
All right, I want to wrap it up to honor your time, be respectful of your time. But Robert, real quick, when you put that question in there, has anyone used AI to help them with searching for gigs or potential new companies to work with, updating LinkedIn? Ask ChatGPT. It's so crazy, but you could ask it like, hey, I'm a freelancer in event production. This is what I do. How can I find new gigs? Are there new potential companies I should look for? Like, ask it. It's crazy. You'll get answers. Yeah. I hope that helps. I'm telling you what, I'm almost losing I get scared sometimes that I'm losing my own way to think. See, you can't even think because I refer to it so much. It's so fun just to ask it questions all the time. So anyway, thank you all so much for coming to the monthly Tempo Think Tank. Our next one is, I don't even have the date because Al, when's the next think tank? The calendar's closed. The calendar's hidden. April. I don't have it on the calendar. Whatever. Make sure you're in Slack. You'll see it in Slack. Make sure if you're not in
April 8th, Tuesday, April 8th.
Thank you. I think we moved it because I'm not here. So it'll be the next week, the 15th. Sorry. I need to tell Barb when I move things. So get in Slack if you're not on Slack. A little housekeeping real quick. If you're not part of Tempo, please join our team. You can go there at tempoliveevents.com and join our team so you can be part of this freelance conglomerate of amazing event production freelancers. And then please follow, like, and subscribe. Seriously, follow, like, and subscribe. We are pretty active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, because we are getting so many freelancers that we're trying to get more clients to get you all more work. So the more you interact with us in social media, the more eyes will see Tempo, and it only behoove you to, make us look good. We'll make you look good. How's that? Excuse me. All right. Well, having said that, we'll see y'all next month. Check out your newsletter and your Slack channel. We're going to post this on Slack with a link within the next 24, 48 hours with Al's slides, so you guys can share with a loved one.
On YouTube.
And YouTube too. That's right. Barb started a YouTube channel for us.
Easier to watch them on YouTube.
It is.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody. This was fun.
Great job,
Great,
Al.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Awesome. Bye.